Hey guys, how you all doing? This is NKD TRADEZONE. So right about today, let's get on to a quick analysis of the pair BTC USDT, talking about the long-term and also the short-term target. Now, if we look at clearly, we can see that for the past few days, we were just basically on an uptrend with a strong uptrend from this price here to this price here. We got ourselves a period of range around here. Then currently, we can see ourselves having some good pullback. So this is some good correction as anticipated for the past few days, with price achieving 99,006, falling as low as 91,005, and currently we are sitting on 93,181 on the BTC price chart. Now the thing to note about this is quite simple. BTC is not done with its dump. BTC isn't done dumping. We are expecting much more from that. And right about this video, I'll be giving you some key short-term factors and also key long-term factors. So let's start up now from the long-term factors. Now the long-term factor, few days back we saw ourselves bottom around the price 66,800 right about here. Following that, we were just on a decisive uptrend till we started going into a phase of consolidation. We had a little bit of rally here, and price now going all the way to the downside, and will likely continue to the downside. But as stated, we were expecting price getting as high as 100k, above 100k. But that is actually a bias that has now been nullified for the time being. That is because the price 100k is a psychological level that BTC will need some form of rally, some retest to be able to break through it. It's a very psychological level. For the first time we see BTC run into 6 digits. We are not really prepared for that. We need some form of conviction within ourselves that, all right, it's time for us to break this level. That is the reason why we can see that the price chart currently got around that zone the same way that we saw ourselves not being able to just one shot break out of BTC all-time high. If you look at BTC all-time high here, you saw what happened right about here. Let's get out a horizontal line, place it here. So from BTC all-time high, we saw ourselves go all the way to the downside for a few months, all the way from March down to August. We're on a downtrend. We started giving ourselves some new highs at this zone before we got all the way to around the same zone, 74k, failed that zone, dumped all the way to 66,008 before we were able to rally and get all the way to the upside. The same we can see currently happening in the market. The zone of 100k is a psychological level. So what we need in the market is for the market to actually try to get to that point, fail to break that structure, go all the way down, gather some momentum, consolidate, and at the end of the day, we get a big break out of the zone of 100k and continue all the way to the upside till the all-time high of BTC, this bull's run of 2024. We should not actually get to revisit this zone again once broken out of it. So the first point is to get to actually build that liquidity around there. Once we build the liquidity, get ourselves a pullback, we get ourselves some form of rally, and finally get to break out of this zone. I'm not stating that we should do all that within the next few months. No, it's actually far-fetched. Within the next few days, we can get that done. But by expectation, we have between now, which is the 26th of November, till the middle of December to get that actually done. So from now, which is the ending of November, all the way as far as mid-December, we are likely not going to get ourselves breaking out of the zone of 100k and just in a downtrend, a choppy sideways, trying to gather momentum before we finally break out of this particular zone. Now, with all that being stated, let's get into the technical factor of today's video. Now, on the technical side, we can see that on the lower portion, we had ourselves a fair value gap at this given zone here. So we had ourselves a fair value gap here. Following this also, we have ourselves another fair value gap here. Ideally, what will happen is the fact that only this fair value gap will be eligible to be mitigated. What I mean is the fact that we in no way are expecting price to fall all the way down below to 74k or 70k, or likely for any reason come back to touch this low. It is impossible in this bull cycle. Till the end of the bull cycle, we have not seen a chance of BTC coming to mitigate anything beyond this zone. The most they can do is within this zone, possibly have a little bit of a breakout and get all the way to the upside. Like we saw a few months back, BTC got to the price 48k, went all the way to the top side, had a major pullback, stopped at 52,000, went all the way to the top again. We saw a break above this structure here, but BTC finally came down all the way to 58,008. Now what happened after 58,008 is going over to a lower time frame. We saw some fair value gaps, though I won't be going down to the 4-hour time frame to do that, but I'll put an example here on the 1-day time frame. We saw a fair value gap here at somewhere like a range of this, and saw another fair value gap also at, let's say, a range like this. At the end of the day, all BTC did was to get all the way to the upside. It came down, mitigated the fair value gap on the 4 hours time frame at 65,000 plus, and that was the end. We only saw a rally from BTC and all the way to the upside, even though we saw the price come here to correct a little bit of pullback. We did not get price falling to this zone or come back to the previous low. We only got ourselves newer higher lows, and that's just how the market have actually been since the dump of August 2024. We've just been getting ourselves a higher low, and more higher low. So the instance here is the fact that we get to find ourselves grabbing a new higher low at the price range of around 81k, 85k. Let's try to bring out our trend line now. So sketching this out, we had this right here. So we had this right here as our previous low, a following low. We did not get to see that. Rather, there was a change of an angle there. So there was a change of an angle, looking at this all the way to this and all the way to this. That means, to a very good extent, we have nothing of sort of BTC trying to clear out this zone. Rather, the worst case scenario, BTC can do something like this, which we are, according to what I stated, by mid-December, BTC should be rounding up all of its sideways movement and ready to kick off again. So by now to middle of December, we can just see some choppy sideways movements all the way around this zone. Following up with this zone, we get all the way to the top side. But before December middle or the middle of December, we are basically not seeing much of BTC like coming all the way to clear out 100k or coming anywhere below here. We might just get to see very shortly, as I stated, price enter this zone here, interact with the 81 to 85k level on its price chart, and that will be all. The next we see is price going all the way to the sideways. Then likely we might interact with this trend line once again, and that will facilitate a push to the upside. So further I'm looking into that. Let's follow up with our Fibonacci retracement tool. So bringing out the Fibonacci retracement right about here, putting at the bottom, putting at the top. Now if you know the rules of Fibonacci, you know that ideally whenever a price chooses to retrace for a continuation to the upside on an uptrend, we expect the price to fall all the way into the discount zone and not the premium zone. We expect the price to fall all the way into the discount fair value gap and not the premium fair value gap. But in this given case now, there's likely a chance that we will see price doing much more of ending here, because the same was expected when we got price at this 58,008 range here, going all the way to the top side. It only mitigated the fair value gap at the premium zone, and we saw an uptrend and a continuation to the upside. So likely the same is going to happen now. We see price fall all the way down to the zone 85k, 81k thereabout, and that will be all for a dump. And following up with the trend line which I just showed now, it also gives confluence to that. Now let's get over to the next line of action. So we've spoken about the long-term buyers here, BTC likely going all the way down to 81k, 85k. It might actually get to have a little bit of weak rejection here, let's say 80k thereabout, but nothing as low as getting over to this fair value gap, 74k, 70k thereabout. Not in any way is that going to happen. So let's look over now to the short-term buyers on BTC. Let's look at what's happening and judge the market from its direction. Looking at the 1-day time frame now, the shorter term buyers, we have a fair value gap here as of a few days back, which clearly as of yesterday was broken out of. So it has been invalidated. This has become an inverse fair value gap. Following that up now, we have this our candle here, which what happened today was the fact that we had our candle close yesterday on BTC at 92,009. We had today start up bullish with price going as high as 95,000, and in that sense now we got to interact with this fair value gap that was mitigated, that was broken out of, and at this stage we mitigated this fair value gap at this zone. And after I did that, we had a severe rejection with price running all the way to the downside, and we are currently at this price range. Now this price range is actually a zone which we call a double bottom and a liquidity holding. So we are currently holding liquidity at this very given zone right about now because it is a double bottom. So liquidity is actually very packed at this zone right about now. There is so much liquidity. Price came all the way down here to 91,005, went all the way to the top side, came back here. It held this zone here as a support, and we saw price going all the way to the top side. Now given this, now it means that so many entries has been made, stop losses, limit orders, so has been put at this zone. Hence there is a massive liquidity pool currently sleeping around this particular zone right about now. And that being given, we will get to see two things happen within the next few days. Number one thing that can happen is likely the fact that following this liquidity zone here, we are going to have another liquidity zone right about here, with the price getting to interact with this trend line here. So what we can see very shortly is the fact that price might break out here, clear all liquidity at this zone here, dump all the way down to the 88,500 level. That's on the short term. We can see price now clear this liquidity and dump all the way down here. As stated, our longer term, we are expecting price to interact with the price range of 85,000 all the way to 81,000 or less than 81,000. But on a shorter term, we are expecting price to grab liquidity here at a given zone. But that should come after two things, and that is what will bring us to our next option here, which is indicating this fair value gap right about here. Now we can't say that this is a fair value gap yet because the daily candle still has 7 hours and 56 minutes to close. Hence we can still see price clear here. We have an effective ranging price and there is no fair value gaps given around there. But given the state of BTC currently, there's likely a chance that we would not get to see a high which is higher than this today. And if there's a possibility, we see price actually get to break below here. So a price going higher than this particular zone of 95k isn't that much possible here. In that sense, we are likely going to be forming out this fair value gap. Now to speak more on this fair value gap is as irrelevant as compared to this our inverse fair value gap that was broken, because if price gets to begin a push to the upside, this is what we might get to see right about then. So holding this zone here, we can get to see something like this happen here. A second on that. So we can get to see price do something like this from this zone here. Either it drops all the way down here, hence clearing the liquidity here, pushing all the way down to 88,005, or we see the daily candle close within this range as stipulated here, and closing with this range, we get to have an open by tomorrow, and that open should also what get to continue with the liquidity hold here. Hence we see price run all the way, clearing out this zone as high as 97k, or in a higher case scenario, we get to see price move all the way back to 99,000. This isn't an impossible concept, but most definitely our first round here is to look into price getting to interact with this fair value gap here, holding here as a point, and then what, rejecting and going all the way below. So if it happens to be now that we see price break all the way down from this given zone, we are expecting price to get all the way down and interact with 88,005 at this given zone. But in a case whereby price becomes more bullish, we might have this liquidity here not grabbed. So this liquidity will still be here on hold, unswept, and all we do is to go all the way to the top side. We interact with this fair value gap before we get ourselves a rejection, falling all the way to the downside, or we even get to go as high as clearing this zone, hence still adding more liquidity to this zone. Because if you check this out well, you'll find out that the fact that we had price at this range here all the way to this range, so the only place we had the liquidity sweep now was this around here. We had the liquidity packing around there, liquidity around here, liquidity around here. So around this zone there is so much liquidity, and likely a chance that BTC might go up here without mitigating this, or possibly mitigating it but not creating a new all-time high for Bitcoin. we get the price sweep this liquidity right about this zone here. Once it sweep the liquidity, we continue all the way to the downside with the momentum that it gets from clearing out all those limit orders and stop losses that has been placed around this zone. That is the first bias given on BTC. Now the second is the very much simple route, which is BTC just continue all the way to the downside and clearing out the price 85k. So that is the easy route there. We just get BTC super bearish, we just keep on going all the way to the downside, clearing this zone, clearing this zone, clearing all the way down to 85k, 81k, and thereabout in the next few days. So what actually basically facilitates this is what happens by today. How today gets to close determines how tomorrow starts up and all. If we get to see a candle close, as I stated, end within this range here to this range here, we expect that tomorrow can start up with firstly having a dump, building more liquidity around this range here, then proceeding all the way to the top side to grab liquidity at this zone, or we just find ourselves super bearish and clearing all zone. Once we are done clearing out 91.5, we clear out 88.5, we clear out 85k, possibly at the zones of whichever of this level, we can be having some minor pullbacks. Once we get to this zone, we have a minor pullback, get to this zone, we have a minor pullback, up until we've cleared out every single of this downtrend here before we can see ourselves finally pushing in to get a chance at an uptrend. So an ideal case scenario is the fact that on a longer term, we are going to see this happen. Now moving on to the sideways, there is no expectation for a major pump or a new all-time high on Bitcoin till around the next few days from now, which should range from around the middle of December. So between this price range here, from here to around this zone, what we should be getting on BTC is just a sideways movement, something around this range here. So just BTC trading in a phase of a consolidation around this range here for the next coming days. And in that given now, this will be the expectation of BTC as we stand for the next few days. And to those on leverage positions, keep in mind that this isn't actually the best time to be going into entries. Any entry you're risking, you can try your very best to make your stop losses as tight as possible. In that given sense, you can make multiple trials on entries rather than having to put a stop loss of this order here. A stop loss of this order here, having to exploit the fact that price can bounce here, possibly not interact with your stop loss, go all the way to the upside. You might just get BTC become super bearish, clear out this first zone, clear out the next zone, come all the way down. So in the case whereby you decide to go in, give a trial on longs, all you have to do is to put your stop loss around there, because once BTC clears anywhere below this zone, most likely it's going here. It won't stop midway. It's most likely just going to go all the way down to 88k. And if you decide to try out a long from 88k, put your stop loss also a little bit below, probably somewhere around this zone, because most likely if it's clearing out this zone and your trade is getting cancelled, you are likely going all the way down to 85k, below 85k and all. So stay safe out there. The bears season is not in. We are just having a little bit of healthy correction in the market, and all we can see is the fact that once BTC is done with all this, our target is still all the way to the upside and upside alone. I'll be making a video very soon of our ideal top in this cycle. How high is BTC going to go? How high is BTC going to go? And with that, we'll be able to understand much more of the idea and the concept of what this bull's run has for us on the long term and flow with it. So a very good day to you all. I remain NKD TRADEZONE.